Hey folks, I wasn't going to do any news stories this weekend, but then I saw this one come up, and I knew that I simply could not let it slide because of how much of a doozy it is. This story is entitled, "It's Free to You. Ministers Pay Nothing for Water and Power," and it was written by Darby Boiser. It reads as follows. Despite their monthly salary of 200,000 rand, no ministers in President Cyril Ramaphosa's cabinet have to pay for their electricity. This comes after the president changed the rules governing the cabinet's perks in April this year, the same month that the rest of the country's electricity tariffs were increased by an average of 10% to fully exempt ministers and their deputies from paying for any municipal services at their official residences. This means that ministers with a salary of 2.4 million rand a year and their deputies who earn 2 million rand a year can use electricity and water to their heart's content, while ordinary citizens have to pay. Previously, there was a limit of 5,000 rand on the amount that cabinet members could claim for water and power, but this limit was scrapped in April. The revision to the ministerial handbook that came into effect on April 13th says that the department responsible for public works shall be responsible for the costs associated with provision of water and electricity to official residences. The previous version stated, the department responsible for public works shall be responsible for the costs associated with the provision of water and electricity to a state-owned residence, provided that such cost is limited to 5,000 rand per month per state-owned residence. Ramaphosa's generosity did not stop at water and electricity. He also increased the limit that cabinet members can spend on their luxury cars. The impact of this windfall is aggravated by the fact that South Africa has one of the most bloated executives in the world. Ramaphosa's gravy train had 62 passengers, 28 ministers and 34 deputies. And free electricity is not the only ministerial benefit. Cabinet members' power is not only free, their lights never go off either. As City Press's sister publication reported in July, the president and his cabinet are spared load shedding because their official residences in the Brenturian estate in Pretoria are powered by the same substation that provides uninterrupted power to the union buildings. The official seat of government is exempt from load shedding by the National Energy Regulator NERSA because it is a national key point. And if cabinet members ever have to spend a night in their private residences rather than in Brenturian, no problem. It's the previous financial year. Taxpayers already purchased 3 million rand worth of generators for cabinet members and their deputies' private use. From April to June this year, the Public Works Department spent a further 860,000 rand on generators. The department could not provide an updated figure at the time of going to print. This means that since April 13th, cabinet members and their families have already enjoyed 105 days without load shedding. The cabinet's electricity bonanza is expected to get bigger and bigger over the next few years. Eskom's current application to NERSA is for a huge power tariff increase of 32.66%, which will come into effect on April 1st next year. The application is currently open for comment, with nurses set to make a decision by December 24th. Experts also warn that power tariffs will continue to rise over the next few years because Eskom's finances are much more dire than initially calculated. The fact that Ramaphosa quietly amended the ministerial handbook was discovered by DA researchers last week. For those who don't know, DA stands for Democratic Alliance, and the Democratic Alliance is the chief opposition party in South Africa. Leon Schreiber, DA MP and party spokesperson on Public Services Administration, says these amendments are a kick to South Africans while we are down. The news of the Cabinet's good life comes at the end of a week during which thousands of Johannesburg residents have also been without water, owing to a combination of pumping stations failing due to hours of daily load shedding and the complete collapse of infrastructure that has not been properly maintained while under municipal management. The situation at two of Johannesburg's largest state hospitals, Hill and Joseph in Auckland Park and Rahima Musa in Carltonville, was so dire last week that doctors were asked to bring water to work so that toilets could be flushed to prevent infections. In addition, Health Minister Joe Phala announced last week that he would have to call on the National Treasury for extra funding because most public health facilities had already exceeded their budgets for diesel for generators. Only 37 state hospitals are located in areas where it is possible to exempt them from load shedding. The National Health Department says it is negotiating with Eskom for direct power supply to all hospitals so that they can be exempt from load shedding. Schreiber points out that every minister and deputy minister is entitled to 2 official residences, one in Pretoria and one in Cape Town. The service bills for each of these homes is now paid in full. In addition to increasing the limits on the water and power bills, Ramaphosa also approved an amendment which states that ministers can now spend 800,000 on the purchase of a new vehicle. The limit was kept to 700,000 rand in 2019 as a symbolic gesture that the cabinet was prepared to tighten its belt while many households were in a dire financial position. Previously, ministers could spend astronomical sums, up to 70% of their annual salary, on luxury vehicles. The 2019 adjustments were the first since 2007, when Thabo Mbeki was still president. The benefits set out in this ministerial handbook are the prerogative of the president and are issued in consultation with the Public Service and Administration Department. Ramaphosa's spokesperson, Vincent Manangwa, referred all inquiries to the department, which promised answered that had not yet been received by the time of going to print. I know this article was quite a long one, but I think it's important that people outside of South Africa know just what a crazy country we live in. South Africa is known as one of the most unequal societies in the world, if not the most, and our politicians love to get on TV and rant and rave about the inequality South Africans face. Naturally, they frame it as inequality between whites and blacks, and they love, as always, to refer to the legacy of apartheid. But it's funny because you'll never hear about anything like what I've just read you. You'll never hear about what comfortable lives they live. Now, I'm not an unreasonable person. A government cabinet minister receiving 200,000 rand per month as a salary would be justified if they were expected to pay for their own travel and other associated expenses that come with being a politician. But everything that they need to do their jobs is covered by the government already. So the question remains, why are they getting such inflated salaries? What on earth do they need so much money for when all of their associated employment costs are covered by the state? Just as a frame of reference, I should let you know that I live on less than 10,000 rand a month. I have a severe disability, as many of you already know. I was born with quadriplegic cerebral palsy. Because of the lack of employment opportunities for white South Africans particularly, I have no choice but to partially rely on a monthly welfare payment from the government. That monthly welfare payment is just under 2,000 rand, and that really only covers about a week and a half's worth of groceries for me. The rest of my income is generated by me doing what I'm doing right now, making videos and other content for subscribers overseas. So I am truly disgusted to see how little our politicians actually give a shit about the suffering that goes on around them. They literally do not live in the same world as the rest of us. And I know that the same can be said of politicians anywhere else in the world, but in South Africa it is so obvious as to be ludicrous. I hope this has been informative for you, and for now, farewell.